Heavenly Father, Mother God, we begin by giving thanks that we are your created expression of love, peace, joy, and abundance. We give thanks that you've created us to be all that you are. And yet we ask for your help to heal our minds that has dreamt up anything to the contrary. Any and all issues to the contrary of God's love and joy and peace. All of these we bring to the altar. We humbly surrender them to the Holy Spirit to lift them into the nothing they are, just dispersing them. We ask that the Holy Spirit replace that which was the illusions, the stuff of life that we've manufactured. We ask that that be replaced with the truth of God, our true identity, and give us the courage and the power to see that true identity in ourselves, but also in each other. Then we can move forward day to day, announcing to ourselves, to the universe, heaven is here now, in and through us and as us. And so it is.
Please join me in reading our mission statement, which you'll find on the white cards in the seat backs in front of you. And together we say, the Global Center for Christ Consciousness is a spiritual center for students and masters on the spiritual path. We are dedicated to awakening the inner Christ and to creating a world of love, peace, joy, and abundance. And now for our sacred reading for today. From Paramahansa Yogananda. Richly rewarded are you who understands that God's love is pure, joyous, and giving. To share an unselfish love for God is a most wonderful state of consciousness. When you are conscious of that presence within you and that your whole being is solely dependent on your Creator, that is the devotional way of life. Even though you don't see, you know God is right behind your thoughts, behind your spoken words, behind your mind and your will, behind your love, behind your whole existence. It is with you all the time. In this state of awareness, selfishness cannot exist. For those who deeply love God in everyone. And so it is.
Thank you. How is everyone today? Good, good. If you would be so kind, share with me any thoughts of what you'd like me to cover today.
Selfless service.
Okay. That's it?
The bad habits.
Okay. Okay.
Addiction.
Okay. Okay, good. What is it? New light or new life? I'll do both. Okay, thank you guys. Say that one again about darkness.
Light into darkness. Light.
Bringing light into.
Bringing light into
Okay, I was thinking you want to turn light into darkness? Okay. Okay. Very good, thank you. For the folks online, some of the requests are related to dealing with challenges, ongoing challenges, addiction and bad habits and so on. Other topics, abundance and service and dealing with light. You know, this immediately calls to mind a couple of things that we can delve into. You know, we think of light as being kind of a new agey term, you know, I can see your light, you know, those kinds of phrases. Channeling light. Light is, in the beginning, you know, God says, let there be light. So that doesn't mean sunshine. I mean, all you have to do is go and read and you'll see that it's out of context. It doesn't mean sunshine. When God said, "Let there be light," try to imagine that's the moment we were created. Let there be an extension of my light. And boom, we were created. I mean, that's pretty cool. And that includes presidential candidates. They may not remember it, and there's days we forget. But the point is, the light that God created isn't affected by the weird costumes that we put on and the behaviors. And it gets really weird when you start to realize that when someone does show a costume that bothers you, whether it's race, gender, politicians, medical world, whatever it is, the people that run the world economically, all those gross disguises, tyrants and crazies and warmongers, all these things. And we actually think, if only they weren't here, the world would be such a better place. And yet, we forget they're actually showing up to be forgiven by you so that the world will change. And if we think world changes when they're gone, we just keep manifesting more of them. And the one you least like on the planet is going to be your dad next time, because he's got to move in so that he's close enough to trigger you even more. So it is kind of funny, but not to live with them. That doesn't feel very funny. But when we evolve spiritually, we start realizing there's no triggers by them anymore. Not because you've decided to condone their behavior. It's that you see through it. You kind of see the humor behind it. So that's kind of beautiful if you think about it. When nothing matters, nothing materializes. Matter. When nothing matters to you, it doesn't need to materialize for you. Does that make sense? It's a great bumper sticker, isn't it? Like, I'm clear, I'm clean. Like, things just don't push buttons anymore. And when the buttons aren't being pushed so easily, there's no need for them. And so the mother can say to you, and so it is. Hi, what's going on? How you doing? Well, I'm ready to reincarnate if I need to. Well, let's check your file. Nope. No buttons. Oh, cool. So we don't have to incarnate. No, you're good. The mother would say to you, the Holy Spirit would say to you, your guides, your angels. No, apparently you're good. Oh, that's really cool. They'll say, but we are looking for volunteers. And that sucks, Because when you have a conscience, you're like, oh, fine. The little foot into the ground. Okay, I'll go, And you can say, but, your vibration is so pure, you get to go and incarnate into some really wonderful experience. They're like, what value would there be for that? If you're volunteering, we need you to go into the trenches, man. We got a family that needs you. So it's kind of strange that way. But it isn't just about the what seems important to us kinds of stuff. You've heard me say that a million times, but it isn't about the stuff that we think is important, even the cool stuff. It's about raising vibrations and all the things that we do to kind of enjoy spiritual life. It's still part of the dream. There's a nightmare where we harm each other and are harmed. There's a happier dream where we're starting to live more spiritual. We're sound healing and past life regression. We do all this because it's part of a happier way of being on earth. But it's still part of the dream. There is another level where all the dreaming is gone and we're just in the knowing of God. And the name of that, my name goes from Michael to John and whatever other names we use along our lifetimes, Sally and Sue and whatever. But that's, the nightmare when it's not going so well under those names. And then it's going better and, you still carry names. There's a point where your name is Christ. When you're completely remembering what identities. Why do I need to be Jim or Sally? I mean, I now remember I am. And that's that beautiful concept of merging into God consciousness again, oneness with God. And if you're thinking that means now you can travel more quickly from planet to planet, you still don't understand. That's still part of the happy dream. In God, there's no things. It's a state of consciousness. And that's why human beings sometimes go, well, I don't know if I ever want to become one with God. It just sounds boring. Because we're just going to what? Be? Well, yeah, if the concept of being seems boring, then you really don't understand it yet, which is fine. You know, you just keep coming to earth and seeing what it's like to not be. And eventually the pain tolerance is reached and you say, oh, okay, I'm ready. Let me just be. Because being one with all that is love and bliss and joy and oneness, you know, when Buddha's asked what is heaven like, he just goes like this. Like, if as soon as I describe it, we're missing something, then it's an it, you know. So that was a very wise response. Now Jesus is like, okay, they didn't get Buddha's. So let me just try to bridge a little. Heaven is kind of like the Ponderosa, where little Joe, you know, and Hoss, and they get along, and they always have each other's, everybody gets along. You know, and then people are like, is he saying that I'm little Joe, or am I Hoss? Or am I the brother that disappeared halfway through the seasons and nobody ever knew what ever happened to him? And it's because the actor wanted a raise and they wouldn't give it to him, so he quit. So which one am I? And they start thinking, and that's what the apostles did too. Heaven is like a kingdom. Oh, really? Do I get to have the first turret? To, you know, do I get the which? Am I at the right hand of the Father? And Jesus is like, Jesus, you know. His name was actually Ralph. It's just that he was always saying Jesus, that they nicknamed him Jesus. Anyway, yeah, you know, Jim. But we have this tendency. Jesus becomes this embodiment because people still understood there are gods. I mean, the gods of Egypt were still believed in and activated and, you know, interacting with people. The gods of the Norwegian region, the gods of Middle East and so on, Asia, you know, the gods were still really well believed in even just a couple thousand years ago. And I'm not saying they're not existent. I'm saying that's another story. But people believed in gods, interacting with gods. And once in a while, kings and queens, they would try to become the embodiment of a god so that they were really, when they were really, really good or powerful, they could be seen as gods, you know, and they you know, all of a sudden, historians can say, well, whether there was a god or not called Odin, they don't believe in that, which they're mistaken. But they will say there was a king who took on the name. Like there was an individual called Ra, or it's pronounced Re, but Ra, the sun god of Egypt. But there's a person that had that name, but there's also an archetype god known as Re or Ra. So kings can take on that name. Well, Jesus took on something. He said, you know what? I'm not going to be the embodiment of any god or goddess, any archetype in the universe that floats around in higher dimensions and all that. I'm going to become the embodiment of Christ. I'm going all the way to the oneness with God. So, and that's why some people will say Jesus was God versus the Son of God, even though he's calling himself the Son of God. They confuse it, and it's understandable because he really is also God, because he's the embodiment of. But so are we all supposed to be. We just don't act like it. You know, God's on a holiday, you know. So we kind of put pause on that and then just kind of started becoming Jim and Sally and whomever. The truth is, we can never completely forget who we are, but we can fight it. And that's where a lot of our inner anxieties come from, because we know that we're better than this. We know that we could forgive. But then when somebody really pushes your buttons, you're now conflicted because you know you want to forgive, but part of you is like, but no, I'm frustrated about this person. That causes us anxieties and diseases and so on. So our diseases aren't as much coming from people as much as our own inner turmoils, our challenges. So dealing with that bringing light into darkness means bringing what? God's light. No, wait, but you are God's light. So when you hear about forgiveness, when you hear about bringing light into darkness, it actually means bringing your real self into a situation. There's, a moment where Krishna describes in the Gita, how we could be. And he's telling Arjuna, here's what really, it's like an Eastern version of Christ consciousness, but it doesn't usurp it. It doesn't replace it. It's just the Eastern version, Krishna consciousness. So Krishna is saying, here's the ultimate way to live. And it's kind of hilarious because he outlines what living the Christ life would look like. And Arjuna's like, okay, taking notes. And then Krishna goes, never mind. Just do the best you can. And it's kind of a funny thing that he's, that's going to just put too much pressure on you. Let's just dumb it down. My words for that, I'm saying. But he's like saying, let's just dumb it down and keep it simpler. Every time you fight the good fight, you're already a victor. You just keep doing the next right thing. So he gives them like a simplified version of it all. So Jesus gives the Beatitudes. Do this and be this and, don't worry when people pick on you. And he's giving you here are the Beatitudes, which means to be this attitude. Here's the attitudes that children of God would have on a day-to-day basis. Thank you, Jesus. Sermon of the Mount's over. And you just know that he's like thinking about this, going, so by the end of his ministry, love one another as I have loved you. Like he just knows. It's the others just too many words. They're just going to somehow mess that up. So he throws it back. Just love one another. And people still, what did he mean by love? Do you think he meant polyamorous love? Do you think he, filial love, friendship love, family love? And they mess with that. It really means be what God created you to be, which is love. And what would love do? Love would forgive. Love would not covet thy neighbor's goods. Love would, see, all you need is that one word. All you need is love. Anyway, all you need is that one word. I'm cheating at work. I don't show up on time. Is that loving? Yes or no? And there's your answer. I want to enter this relationship. Does this relationship resonate with love? Yes, romantically. No, we're talking about love. Real, true, unconditional love. No, okay, then you might want to rethink that. A job I don't like, is that resonating with love? Family members that abuse you, is that okay? I mean, really, all we need is that one word as our compass, and things would simplify. But how many copies of a book could you sell that are all empty pages except one? Love. Is that going to become a bestseller? It's people want more. They want to chew on things and think things and go left and right instead of just center. The woman who received A Course in Miracles had all these bizarre and cool synchronistic miracles happening to her that was kind of like, it's coming. Something's amazing is going to happen to you, and all these cool synchronicities and all these amazing miracles. And one time it's close, it's like over the horizon coming, but then she has this vision. And she has a scroll set in front of her, and she says, if I unroll it to the left, I can know anything of the past. That's the gift of Edgar Cayce. If I unroll it to the right, I will know anything about the future, the gift of Nostradamus. She said, but I decided not to unroll it left or right. Right in the middle, the words God is. And I said, that's enough. And then she heard a voice say, congratulations, you passed this time. Think about that. God is. That could be my mantra, my meditation. If I want to abuse you or argue with you, wait, why do I need to argue? God is. But humans, let me do some unrolling to the left and right. God is not enough. They finish the sentence, God is, and they fill in not enough. So I need to know why I'm annoyed by you, and I need to know what the future holds with you. But that's human. That's okay. But she needed to just let go, and God is enough. God is all that really matters, and so on. So that's what we need to be, to become our mantra. The idea that even Jesus, who attains Christ consciousness, look at the patterns, please. Be objective for a moment here on this. Look at the patterns of how people try to humanize Jesus. I mean, I'm surprised there hasn't been a movie that hasn't featured him with his feet up, a beer and a cigar. I mean, they try to just make him so humanized. He was intimate with Mary Magdalene. Judas was misunderstood. Jesus didn't really walk on water. I'm not making these things up. People have best-selling books telling you these things. Jesus didn't really walk on water. It was low tide. That's one of the weirdest things I've ever heard. They actually tell you it was low tide. These are fishermen. You didn't think they would have noticed? And, Jesus, there was a big storm, but it was low tide, so Jesus could walk out to the boat. I mean, guys, this is all about humanizing Jesus, but there's a reason. Because you want to humanize Christ, which is your real self. So you want to take Jesus down so you don't have to go up. This is a plot by the ego. Tear Jesus down. Make him as human as possible. Even the apostles didn't completely understand him in their lifetime. We went into the temple and Jesus overturned the tables. He was very angry at them. And then he says in A Course in Miracles, how could I be Christ and be angry? So what he's saying is that's a projection of the apostles. Why? Because the apostles are going, well, for me to do that, I would have to be angry. So they assume he was angry. Do you see what I'm saying with that? So it's like that. And if he kisses Magdalene or others to greet them, if I were kissing a hot-looking girl, I would be into her. And so the Lord loveth thy wench, or whatever, they're writing from middle-age terminology. They're just projecting their stuff there. But it's funny because it's just humanizing. And there's a reason. So watch, and it's okay because I know like some of you are into The Chosen. It's a really great series. But it's kind of cool. The good thing is they do humanize him a little bit. And for some people, that's important because it makes him more approachable, right? Is that reasonable? That you make him more approachable? Yes? Yes? Okay. Perfect. Perfect. But we have to ask ourselves, why do I need him to come down to be more approachable? Why can't I go up? Think about that. And that's just too tall of an order. I mean, I got to be all Christy now, to understand Christ? Well, yes. But he also spoke in 3D terms so that we can bring it down to an earth level. He didn't say, well, you have to just come up to my level and not earth. He doesn't mind reaching us at whatever level we're at. That's one of the miracles of Christ consciousness. Love, compassion, forgiveness is meeting people at the level they're at, which you and I have to practice doing. That's bridging. That's the gift of the Divine Mother. She says to us, I want you to constantly bridge with your brothers and sisters. Perfect. That's our task as given by her. But the concept of Christ is not just, I think Jesus was really a wise guy. He's probably, up there with Gandhi or, other wise individuals. Why do you have to do that? Why do you have to believe something like that? Why can't you believe that it's equivalent to God consciousness? Not just a wise individual, not smart, not high IQ, not well-learned. We're talking God. A being that is above all light beings, above all light workers, a being that the ascended masters call the master of masters, the one with the keys to the universe. Why do we have to believe that's not so? Do you know the apostles, their main trouble after Jesus ascends, their main challenge was not about healing and casting out demons. Their number one issue that kept recurring was that the people that were converted into, we believe in Jesus as the Messiah, started dropping into doubts because of people planting doubts in their minds. Well, I think some of those stories were exaggerated. Maybe this, maybe. I mean, there's people that have written books that explain that Jesus didn't really get crucified. They just found a look-alike. They found a look-alike. and stuck someone else on the cross as a volunteer. And then he, moved to south to France with Mary Magdalene. They have these weird stories. And it's because they're trying so hard to not believe in the miraculous. That's what they're doing. This world doesn't want, and mind you, your ego needs you to not believe in the miraculous. Because if Jesus actually resurrected, it's all over. The time of the ego is now over, and now it's just a matter of burning off the residual bits. The ego ceased to exist when Jesus resurrected. It already ceased to exist in the person Jesus, but for all humanity, because we're one, it broke the illusion for everybody. Now it's just a matter of accepting, which is why Christians will say, do you accept Jesus as your personal Savior? That word accept is huge. It's not that the way they do it is perfect, because they're into, you have to believe in the bloodstained, sacrificial lamb Jesus on the cross. And Jesus is like, I'm not on the cross anymore. Why do you want to keep looking at the cross? So it is kind of strange. He's like, it's cold, burn the cross and use it for wood, give it some practical purpose, because seeing me on the cross anymore isn't really valuable. So instead, there's this, can you accept what this is really about? That you are the light of God. When you accept that Christ was a perfection, Christ was a perfect embodiment of the light of God, it means one neuron in your brain became enlightened, because we have a neuron for every soul ever existed in there somewhere. So when Jesus accepted, I had one light go off in my brain and it can never be extinguished. The only thing I get to choose, I can't snuff it out. What I can do is choose when I want that light to warm the other cells around it. And then let that warm other cells, allowing the Christ in me to expand and expand until my mind is completely filled with the light of God. This isn't about just using more power of your brain. There's some people that are into that. It's a plot. Aliens kept us from using our whole brain. Your brain is not your savior. The light of God and remembering who we are is our salvation. Jesus just depicts it perfectly. And he says, I'll be an example to you. Not only will I be a distant example, I'm in you, calling for you to let this light warm and shine and nurture, fire throughout the neurons of your brain. Let this happen. And it's like, oh, this is starting to just go to another level. This is warming inside of me. I don't have to minimize Christ. It's a matter of letting myself become the Christ. And the apostles struggling with people, losing faith, it's true that happened. But I need to ask whether I'm doing that. When do I lose faith? And you can say, well, I'm pretty faithful. I believe in God every day, even if something doesn't go well. That's cool. But remember, we covered last week, every time you stress or strain, you're watching a favorite ball team or something, and you want your team to win, they're not winning, it becomes a false god. Anything that isn't just the love of God, and we put emphasis, even like I have a bill right here, and I don't know how I'm going to pay it. Do you understand that not knowing how I'm going to pay it and worrying, I actually gave the bill power? I mean, literally gave it power. Only God has power over me because God created me. And God never said, I'm going to create you in my image, all powerful, except for bills. Those are going to have power over you. That never happened. You can wander the garden and you do what you want to do. You just live in love. So we're created to be able to achieve, to do anything. Even in the earth plane, we could have lived a Edenic kind of life. But our judgments, our unhealed wounds, they just keep haunting us, and then we believe in them. They happen, they occur in our mind like a memory of a wound, but then we inflate it with power. So this concept, if we really want to get down to it, it's not just you becoming a nicer person. You might think, I'm on the spiritual path now, and my goal is to know some more yoga asanas. I know I'm going to be really good once I do that. If I lose 10 pounds, it's perfect. Once I have children, once I'm married, there's all these little strange little goals. And none of them matter. None of them are really important. I know they might feel that way, and I don't mean to diss anybody. I'm saying the only real important thing is to remember who we are. Who is that? Christ. Okay, well, you had me for a minute. Remembering who we are sounds attainable. Christ? Like, that's way out there. It's a day at a time, man. It's called living the Christ life. Now, I better, as a caveat, better say, it's not easy. So you're better off just working from nightmare life to happy dream for now. If that's all you think you can do, comfort-wise. What happens for me is knowing that there's something else, I kind of go, well, I can't just go from nightmare to happy dream, knowing that there's this Christ thing. I'm like, I got to go for that. But I got to tell you, it's not easy. Even actors that play Christ. Have you ever looked into this? I mean, of course, there are simpler, low-budget movies that people played Jesus and, it was so-so. Like we once had Max von Sydow, a Norwegian gentleman, play Jesus. And it was kind of funny because if you listen, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. You can actually hear his accent. So I can't say that that's the highest budget, like the biggest example of somebody playing Jesus, but it was kind of funny. Blessed are the meek. And I'm like, wait, what? You can hear it. But the biggest actor, Caviezel, he played Jesus and he got struck by lightning while he was up on the cross. Twice. I mean, think about this. And he became a Christian. I would too. Jeez Louise. I'm thinking about becoming, I am becoming. Wow. And the director, Mel Gibson's like, you good? We got to keep filming. He's like, well, he's not saying anything, so I guess he's good. Smoke. Poor guy, man. Heavy stuff. But why? Because he took it seriously. There's a guy playing Jesus in The Chosen. He's aged beyond the normal number of years already. He struggles with depression now because of the heaviness of playing that role. He describes, he says, what's come from this, the thing that comes to mind first when people ask, is I'm constantly fatigued. And that's sad, but I get it. It's not just because of filming schedules. The idea of you and I being like Christ is tiring, but not to my Christ self. It's tiring to my ego. The fact that I might discover my inner Christ is exhausting to the ego. It has to fight every second of every day to keep us from getting there. So it works and works and works to keep that from happening, which is why the apostles are saying, no sooner do we have a town that's everybody's in a state of love and miracle working. We leave and somebody shows up in a town and says, come on, guys, get over that. The intellectual who says it's in your head, you're making it up, it's just mass hallucination, none of this ever happened. And they go, really? I thought it was real, and they start believing it. Like a sick virus that infects the minds of all those people that believed. Now, it's not good that somebody tries to tempt us to not believe in what we once believed. It's not very cool of them. But we're the ones who have to have an immunity to that. If somebody came up to me and I talked for hours to explain why this is an illusion, there's no God, there's no room in my mind to at all believe it. They could say, but what about rape and war and suffering? I already know that that's us, not God. So there's no room in me. There's a point when you're struggling, because you asked about addiction, there's a point where you're struggling with addiction where it's still an enemy and you have to fight it. But there's also a point where it's not an option anymore. You know what I mean? You're not really biting your nails through the addiction. It's no longer there. And that's another level, isn't it? It's beautiful. But there are times when you're first struggling and anything could maybe pull you away. And that's the same with beliefs, with consciousness. But you're the one in recovery from earth program. You'd think it needs more than 12 steps. But, the 12 steps from earth program. And it does work you. But are you just shortly in recovery? You could be 20 years into recovery from earth and still be susceptible constantly to doubt and fear. But there's another option, which is, you know what? I think I'm ready just to completely accept this as my truth. You could say that has to be an organic growth process, but I have to say it's also a choice where you just say, that's it. Enough is enough. I never reached a line where I said, okay, today I'm really going to make the commitment. And nothing else ever made sense to me but God, love, priorities being straight. That's just how I feel. And I'm not saying I'm better than anyone else, because you can feel that and still be susceptible to challenges and life's lessons and so on. But it's nice to just say, I'm done with the bipolar spirituality. I believe, I don't believe. I believe, I don't believe. I just feel like I'm good. I feel connected, and now my life might still have challenges, but it's more like up and a drop like this, not like this. It's not based on convenience or what I want to get from this world or what I want from people. That's all, once you see this clearly enough, it's just, there's no messing around. There's no conditions put on it. You just feel really, really plugged in. So these people, if actors trying to portray Christ can have that level of breakdown, psychological weight and challenge, isn't that a strange metaphor for us trying to live the Christ life? I mean, it's easy to say it. Oh, I believe in this or I so on. It's easy to say it, but that doesn't mean that when your family members show up, you know what to do about it. How do you deal with that? I mean, I have kind of, longish hair and, and people, you look like Jesus. No, I don't. I mean, because I have long brown hair and this. So what's that got to do with anything? So people sometimes think I look like this to try to be all Jesus-y. It's nothing to do with anything. I just, to me, cutting my hair is annoying. It just, I'm not going to go to a barber and, try a little red on top. Those of you who watch my Zoom program, when I see myself on the screen, I go, oh, it's time. I take scissors out of the drawer, I grab a fistful and cut, and now I have a haircut. That's my big expenditure for cutting my hair. I mean, it's not this thing about Jesus on purpose looking. It's just, I'm lazy. Kind of. So it's kind of like that. But living the Christ life can be heavy. It can be a really heavy thing. What if you're you haven't dated in a while and you're feeling a call for that? I'm telling you that you no longer just go, which person should I date? It does start to become kind of, I want to date, but this person doesn't feel like a Christy experience. You go to a restaurant, well, my favorite food doesn't feel Christy. Well, that's you deciding that. But I'm just telling you, when you have Christ as your conscience, nothing shines to it. Nothing lives up to it. So you get the temptation to go, I don't know what to do at all, because nothing resonates to that. And Jesus himself is telling you, how could it? How could you take density and bring it to heaven and weigh it out? It doesn't make it. It's like a comet coming to Earth or an asteroid. It breaks up. As soon as you try to bring density into the light of God, it doesn't reach the light. It dissipates before it gets there. So here's the datum about, no date. Okay, I guess no dating for me. Oh, here's my diet. Oh, it's gone. I mean, how do you expect anything to live up to Christ consciousness? And that's frustrating too. I mean, I have those moments where I'm like, what's the point? Okay, let's try and do some normal things. I think I'll watch a movie. No, this doesn't resonate with me, Christy. No. No, shut it off. Mysteries and dramas and killers and thrashers and gross beings, whatever. I'm like, it just doesn't do it for me. But then that's the same description of dating for some people. So now we're doing nothing. Oh, now we're back to being monks and nuns. We've already done that. And that doesn't feel very Christy either. Sitting around shaming. Don't dance. Don't let anybody see your pelvis move when you dance. That's your dancer. It's the only one allowed. Nice and rigid. And so what are we going to do, guys? And Jesus is saying, you're still trying to determine what is Christy. So your ego has infiltrated even that to decide what's Christy. Well, now I don't know what to do. To try to be Christy is wrong. And now, and not being Christy doesn't feel right either, of course. And so Jesus has a solution. Whatever you do, bring the light of God into it and let it become whatever it becomes. Don't try to find the Christ diet, the Christ date, the Christ whatever, parenting skills. Do what you're going to do, but ask at the morning of every day, be with me and guide what I do. And surrender to that. And some days you will slip. And what are you supposed to do? Bring Christ to that by forgiving yourself and trying better the next day. I mean, there is an answer to this. And it isn't one of the extremes. Non-Christy behaviors, Christy behaviors, because both of them will drive you nuts. That's in John 15:3. I'm kidding. Trying to be too Christy will drive you crazy, But it's to keep humanizing this. That means you're almost there. You just adjust your diet and you're Christ now. It's not so. This Christ thing is supernatural. It's beyond human brain ability to understand it. Even Mother Mary is portrayed as just kind of a simple, humble woman who happens to channel through this being that's Jesus that becomes the Christ. You have to understand what I'm describing here. These actors trying to portray Jesus gets their nervous system. Understand that a woman's womb filled with Christ is a bit something, man. That's a bit intense. It's not like she can just so I got this Christ child inside and I don't know who the father is, but that is not how this went down. That's not how this went down. You understand, this woman had to be devoted to holding the Christ frequency. How? How does she do it? She's brought up as an Essene, so her body is purified, her emotions are purified, her mind, her thoughts, everything. This woman has to live the Christ life to be able to accept the Christ frequency into her womb. And yet the movies don't know how to portray her. If the movies portrayed her correctly, I remember Edgar Cayce said, Mother Mary went through initiations that today would be called child abuse because of the strict regimen she had to live under. And that was his day 100 years ago. God knows what it would be called today. But these are people who have chosen to live the Christ life, but not saying we're the model that you have to live like this. This is the tricky part. The law of Moses was telling you how to be and not be. For the people at the time, that was what they could manifest. Jesus didn't say, well, now I'm here and I'm the new laws of Moses. You have to be like me. That's not what he said. You have to love like me. So it's kind of like saying, and the Course in Miracles tells you this too, and a lot of people don't realize it. The 10 Commandments that we thought they were laws to live up to, they were actually laws to show you would be like if you were Christed. And you're not, so you're going to fall to some of them. Jesus manifests and he shows you what it looks like to be Christed, but you're not going to be able to live up to it. Course in Miracles says, here's all these workbook lessons and all this text, thousands, of pages and words and so on. But it says in there that people don't catch, you're not going to be able to embody this course. The whole point of the course is to tell you, here's what you're not going to be able to do, so forgive yourself for not being able to do it. What a weird, I did go through thousands of pages just to get that? Yes. Because it is extinguishing your ego while we're going. It is helping you reach new levels of consciousness. It is. But you don't understand the new levels of consciousness by following the Torah, Course in Miracles, Jesus, if you don't know how to forgive yourself when you slip. Otherwise, it's all behavior modification. I'm going to behave perfectly. But you can't. You're in a dense body. Well, yeah, but I'm not killing or stealing. No, wait. Let me drop a weight on your foot. And as soon as you scream, it means you thought you were just a human being that could feel pain. But you're not. You're a divine being that has no body. Boom. Ah, sinner. You know, how well did that go? You see? So it's all about lighten up. You know, lighten up. The concept of trying to be is allowing ourselves to be, not trying. It isn't the efforting, it's the lighten up, forgive. Well, if only somebody would, and it's not. It's letting go of all that stuff. I love you no matter what you appear to be. Because as soon as I judge you by your appearance, I'm actually saying you're a dense, fallen human being. And the only way I can see a dense, fallen human being is if I'm one. Because I have to see with my dense eyes, my dense mind. You see? That ability, I can see your density, means I'm dense. So we're both up creek. That's why forgiveness entails that when I'm forgiving you, I'm also lifting veils off my eyes. My forgiveness of others, and I don't just mean people. My forgiveness of my animal that died, it broke my heart, but it didn't die. Why is it breaking your heart? Because I believe it died. It's gone. I'll never have it again. That's mortal consciousness. Divine consciousness says, oh, well, you're still there. You could still speak to your mother if you want to. You could still speak to your mother. You know, she's there. How could she be gone? Well, she died and went on. But she's also here. Love is everywhere. It connects you to everything. So you can send love to a dog you had when you were 5 that died when you were 6. You can still send love to it, and wherever its essence is going to be lifted, whether it knows why or not. It'll be lifted because somebody remembered how much they loved it. And that's that connectedness. And human beings don't live like that. There's a lack mentality. You brought up the word abundance. Abundance isn't like just cash on hand. It's a consciousness that I understand I'm plugged in. How could I not have enough to pay that bill? Now, I know that sounds like I'm disregarding or minimizing the fact that sometimes we don't seem to have enough to pay a bill. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying to err in your thinking is human. But there is another option. So have the bill, and if you say, well, I don't have the money, which means I don't really have the consciousness, so I failed my Christ test today. No. Instead, look at the bill. Look at it and say, isn't this funny? I've got a piece of paper that's this thin, and it's determining whether I'm a Christ being or not. This illusionary piece of paper, how do I know that? Because I'm worried. How can the child of God worry? All we have to say is, let there be light. All we have to do is speak the words. Use our Christ throat center, our Christ, I am the Word of God. Command these things, but you have to believe. Don't just say it. Don't just ask. Don't just pray. You have to believe what you're saying. I truly know. Now, here's the test again. Well, I didn't just pray for something. I said, and I believe it is so. And it still didn't happen. Your eyes seeing that it still didn't happen already confirmed that you didn't totally believe. That's how exact miracles are. Jesus didn't go, Lazarus, come forth. Please make this work. Please make this work. You know, he didn't have any doubt. You understand? No, there's no option. So that's the attitude, the mindset. And it doesn't always work because God's in the making, the remembrance. If my doubts, if I have a lesson related to any kind of doubt, it's going to show up when I try to manifest good things in my life. And that's not their fault. It would have manifested, but they. But you're an image of me. You're a reflection of me. So when those things don't materialize right away, the miracles, just see them for what they are. These are my tests being reflected back to me. Back to this concept, though, of what we really are. There's no words I could say that can completely download that knowingness. Know that actors try to even play a role of Jesus, and it can break them down. That Mary had to become purified to carry the Christ frequency as a body, just as Jesus, not even completely Christed yet. So think about what it means to you in your remembrance of who you are. You know, the earth cried the day Jesus died. The earth cried. There were these sounds of moaning. There was rain, the tears of the universal mother saying, I cry because him dying shows me how much pain my children are in. That you took my son that did nothing and you murdered him so viciously. The earth cried. The earth moaned. It shook. It quaked. Pilate says something happened when this man died. He had to have been a god because they believed in gods and goddesses. They didn't understand he wasn't just a lowercase god. But the Romans believed in God. So even Pilate went, this has to have been one of the gods that we talked to. I mean, they believed and interacted with gods in those days more so than today. It must have been one of those. They didn't understand, no, he is the embodiment of Christ, God. Capital G. And that's a whole new level. But that the earth would mourn because the earth mother is a reflection of the universal mother that's a reflection of the divine mother. And his human mother too. All the mother down in all these levels, they were all crying. But don't misunderstand and think that it means that they cried just because he died. It's that the mother sees her children in such a hateful state that you would murder him like this. She's crying for us. The universal mother knows he's Christ and can't be killed. So she's already also holding a vision of his recovery, his resurrection. So when the earth cried, it was also, and we cry when we see scenes like that, but we cry because we also know that was vicious and hurtful and scary and all that human stuff. But we also cry because we miss God. We cry because of how we feel, because when you see the story of Jesus and crucifixion, you're also crying because we crucify each other every stinking day. Every judgment is a crucifixion. So you're not just crying because, oh, poor Jesus. You're also crying because every person you ever hated was on the cross, put there by you. And it upsets you, which is good because that's your conscience. What you really want is to see the resurrection. So do you shut the film off because you're watching the crucifixion? You're cutting yourself short, literally and metaphorically. You're giving yourself no chance. When Jesus died, we cried, but you know what? It's also the coolest thing in the world because when he was crucified, it was also the death of the ego, the death of your false self. You accept it, you stay dead. If you don't accept it, if you accept that this is an opportunity for your awakening, you actually resurrect. So the crucifixion is done by everybody all the time. Every time I judge you, I crucified myself and you. And the people crucified Jesus and so on. So the crucifixion is what it is. But it's potentially also the death of the ego. The crucifixion death is also the death of crucifixion. If we don't get that, we stay dead. The crucifixion has power over us, which means your judgments have power over you, your opinions of people have power, and that's where that goes. But if I accept, no, I do not stay crucified. I'm going to practice love and forgiveness, I resurrect. And when I resurrect, everybody that I love resurrects with me. And if I have no others that I'm loving, I can't resurrect. It's like entering the ark, the animals entering the ark of Noah. You can't resurrect by yourself. You have to show up with people that you've forgiven to say, here's my testimony. People that I've now turned my relationship into a holy relationship with. You know, no judgments, whether I loved them or I hated them or whatever else was going on. You know, all that I'm surrendering. So when we see these things and it kind of hits us, don't just think it's a human reaction. It's also a deep archetypal experience you're having to cry in Jesus' death. It's the death of us all. And that, as I'm going to close now in a second, I have to tell you, that's one of the challenging things. When you grow spiritually, you go from being a little you to us. You start entering collective consciousness, right? Now, when you start entering collective consciousness, oh, it feels so good. I just feel like I'm one with everybody. Until it doesn't go well. It feels great to be one. Oh my God, everybody light, and we're all just shining, and we're holding hands, singing Kumbaya, and it's just wonderful. That's nice. But when you start to feel everyone's grief, everyone's sorrow, everyone's rage, it's heavy. It's a very heavy thing. And when it's happening, I encourage you, this I cannot do. I'm giving this to you, God. Give it to the mother. It sounds weird that we would give such garbage to the mother, but she then dissipates it and brings you something in return called the truth. Yeah, there is pain and there is hurt and there is suffering. But, you know, for me, oh my God, you know, I don't get triggered a lot, but if I get triggered, it can go really deep places. Because I can't just go, oh, burnt toast. I don't think I can even live today. That's not going to get me. For me, it's going to be something else that connects to something else, something else. It's going to be multi-connected, and it's going to feel like the loss of heaven. Which sounds strange that I'm confessing that, but that's how it feels. To me, it's when things add up to the point of we had something really beautiful and it's collapsing. And it breaks my heart to see that. But it isn't just my little agenda of something on earth. It goes to deep places for me. It goes to, we were this close to bliss. You know, let's say it's a board meeting or a volunteer day or decorating for Christmas or whatever it happens to be. And then something turns and it goes really poorly. 1 minute there's all this bliss. Even partnership relationships, there can be like, this is so beautiful. And you can create a partnership that's 9.9 out of 10 on a scale. But if it happens to flip and go the opposite way, it's very deflating, isn't it? But you know why? Well, because that person, no. It's because you experienced the loss of heaven again. See it for what it really is. And then you won't have to dump it on the person so much because you understand this is really, it feels like the loss of heaven. And in a microcosmic way, it is. So what do I need to do about that? Well, what do you think? Forgiveness. We can't actually leave heaven. We just thought we did. The relationship ending doesn't mean it actually was the loss of heaven. It just looks like it did. How do I get back to heaven? Forgiving all the characters and the circumstances and so on. Constant. Forgiveness is an ongoing process. It's the only process in this realm that matters, believe it or not. It isn't the change of your diet and anything else. The only thing that matters in the 3D world is the forgiveness of the 3D world because that gets us home to the real world. One day, forgiveness won't be necessary. You don't go home and then have forgiveness work to do. You don't go back to heaven and go, I still got some shadow work. What's shadow? Everything's light. As soon as you don't stand in the way of the light, there's no